Humanitarian Love live session with Pauline. Hi, Pauline.
Hi, Asel. Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone. So, the topic that Pauline suggested we talk about today is why is the wrong person, or why we believe that we were in the relationship with the wrong person, or why we keep meeting the wrong person, and how to stop basically doing that if that is the pattern that we believe is happening. So we thought of talking about um, why this happens and what to do about it. So the first question is always, well, maybe we should even define like who is the wrong person. so
Yes,
so we
yes.
get clear on what we're talking about. So Berlin, what would you say?
Yeah, for me, I really wanted to talk about the what we can see as a pattern of attractions, and I know we started talking a little bit previously about what is the wrong person. So maybe not the wrong person, but when an attraction, when a type of person, you keep meeting those type of person and it's not working out for you. So concretely, that are people who are not available. So it can be really not available, like
Yeah.
meaning committed with somebody else, or it can be emotionally unavailable,
Mm.
or it can be people who are not willing to commit or willing to go to move forward in the relationship with
Yeah.
you. People who are not treating you well, because it exists, people who are like, let's say, objectively criticizing you, shaming you, cheating on you,
Mm.
lying to you. Like, unfortunately,
Yeah.
this relationship happened.
Mm.
Or I would also include relationship with people where there is too much of a difference, maybe in terms of age or cultural background, not meaning that it has a problem in itself, but if there is a pattern of you meeting people with too big of a gap, and that it turn out to not be working out for this reason. So this is
Mm.
what I wanted to put under the label, quote unquote, of wrong attraction or unsupportive attractions, right? To
Yeah.
start.
Exactly. And I wanted to here highlight maybe more of also bringing awareness to how labeling it wrong could also be creating some of the issues, right? Because whenever we are labeling some like past relationships as wrong, we are essentially also in the blaming mode a bit of like, oh, because of the other person, I
Mm.
didn't get what I wanted or I couldn't build the relationship, right? So if that's the pattern you need to watch out for so that we're not like in this cycle of because of someone else I couldn't be happy. I think this is like the pattern we get into a lot, which also makes then ourselves being like our decisions, our ways of going into that relationship before we are then making ourselves wrong as well, and then what that often leads to is us believing, oh, that means that I'm not really good at building relationship, I'm not really good at this and that, and then we continue stopping ourselves in our journey of relationships, right? So I just want you to all to think about like whatever the ways that you're defining what wrong is, be clear, like Pauline was saying, what that means underneath that label, right? So that we are then like looking at how to solve that specific thing that we're looking at rather than something like generic that we tend to then get into, oh, because of this giant thing, I can't really move forward or I don't know how. And I think that's what I would love to encourage people not to do to themselves. So now that we know more or less like our subjective definition of wrong and how it's not working out for us, right? In whatever the way that we hope that it would work out. Now the question then is we go to why that is, and I think we talk about this a lot in our previous live sessions as well. But maybe here we could be even highlighting some of the points and saying why exactly this pattern we observe. Pauline, it's to
Yeah.
you.
Yes. So just to come back into like who are the wrong people. Just, of course, yeah, there are no wrong people. There is just not the right match, let's say, or the right person
Yeah.
for you. I believe everybody is a great person, good person inherently. And I also want to add to that even with the right person, there are going to be challenges and misunderstanding
Right.
and difficulties. So, just to put much more nuance into the black or white, we are using
Yeah.
this term. We started being a bit provocative with using that word of wrong people, because maybe this is how it comes out when people talk about it. So, maybe more looking at, okay, this relationship is not supportive for me, or it's not working out. I'm not feeling good in the relationship, or there's no potential for growth.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to talk about it because I see this like a lot of people who are in those patterns. And so I think it's
Mm.
important to name it, to be able
Yeah.
to understand then what's underneath. So yes. And I, before going into the why this happened, also just to explain how it shows up, because it's not just like, oh, the person is the wrong person. It's like, okay, how does it feel in the relationship? And so to describe a bit how things happen in this type of relationship is like, you feel you're fighting. There's a lot of resistance, like a lot of, yeah, resistance. And sometimes there might be some high, if some people who is not available is available, or is reaching out to you, or you have those precious moments together, or if a person is not treating you well in general. And then at some time they're there's those hits of dopamine, of feel good hormones, like, oh yes, is working out. And then we go down into the roller coaster. And then there is the difficulty in the relationship itself, but then there's all the internal challenges that what you're making it mean. Like, sometimes there's shame around being with somebody who's not available and not treating us well. We're like, why do we keep choosing these people? Why do we stay in those relationships? Why is it like stronger than us? And so there's a lot of shame, a lot of question, like, why is he or she not responding the way I wanted? Why he or she is not available or not willing to build with me? So there's a lot of questioning, a lot of self-judgment and self-doubt. And so I just wanted to say that these are indication that, yes, something is off, and you might want to dig a little bit into what type of relationship is that, and maybe that's the wrong person. This is where we go to making it the wrong person.
Yes, exactly. And maybe one of the things that also, like, looking at the opposite of the reaction that you are describing, Pauline, could also be the indicator of how we may be giving up within the relationship, meaning we don't really see the point of fighting, or we don't really see the point of doing something or fixing things, or like even discussing things, right? Because we just inherently are internally like judging and shaming and all of the things happening, that we just give up without realizing that we're doing it, because we just believe that nothing can be done about it, I think, right? And or also, even if we did something, nothing would change. And I think therefore
Mm.
we just keep like floating in that relationship without really doing anything, without really, and then maybe also like secretly hoping that one of us ends the relationship, or one of us like pulls the trigger, or whatever the way you described it, right? So that's why I think it could be like the extreme ways of like fighting and resisting, like Pauline was saying, but also like withdrawing from the relationship, which focusing so much on work and not really prioritizing the relationship, because you feel like everything that you will be spending will be wasted anyway. There is no energy. Why bother it? So this kind of indicators could be also telling you that something is off, and you are not in the match with the person that you want to. Because if you did, you would be trying to do something about it. You would be trying to solve or discuss or like communicate and find solutions. But if you're not really willing to do that, then that means there is the mismatch happening that you may want to have a look at it.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to describe. what may be happening, what I see happening a lot, which is what you are describing now and what you mentioned before, which are two ways of thinking and being,
Yeah.
which are, one is we understand, we feel that something is off, we're not being fully met, there's not working out for us, but I go into, oh, this is the wrong person, into the blaming, into looking for the problem and hence the solution outside of us, which we know doesn't work. Or we go into spinning and giving up, and it's like a surface level thinking. It is not a deeper understanding, because and this is where we want to take you today, to this deeper understanding, because when you have the understanding of like, I understand, I see what is happening between us, I understand there is a dynamic that is working in a certain direction, then you're giving yourself the power to change it if you do want, to make a decision, whether to keep on engaging with that person and to change the dynamic, or change falling for this type of person, right? So then you go to a place of power and agency.
Exactly.
So if we talk about the why, and I think this is so important, because to move out from this place of either blaming the other or shaming yourself, feeling there's something wrong and being in the self-judgment, we want you to move to a place of compassion, clarity, understanding, because from that place, then you can make decisions. So when you are finding yourself in those kind of relationship once in a while, it doesn't mean it's a problem. But if it's happening frequently, if it's a pattern, it is not by accident. It is coming. And when we want something and when we're not having it, it's again a sign that there is a disconnect between the conscious and the subconscious. And we know that we are functioning 95% based on unconscious, thoughts and patterns and wounds. And so, the way we pick people and then the way we act with those people is completely based on our past, on what we learn about love, about being lovable, about what we are expecting from these people, on what we are telling ourselves. There's this whole set of conditioning that is really automatic, that is running, without us being fully aware. And we've talked in this program often about how it comes mostly from our childhood, from the way we were taken care of and what we learned from our parents or caretaker, that love was, how lovable we were. Any messages, explicit or implicit, about being worthy and deserving of love, like this is like is like really a program. And then on top of that, there's the following romantic relationship, that continue to shape us and our vision of love. Like if we got heartbroken, if we broke somebody else's heart, of course there's some imprint. And so these, I think we mentioned that because I think we always often repeat the same thing, but what explained, to go back to why you're attracting people with whom there is a disconnect, no potential for growth, is two main ideas, two possibilities that can be both together. One is the belief, or I call it the wound, that love is dangerous, that there is danger, there is lack of safety around love, that you might be subconsciously, of course, you're going to be rejected, you're going to be abandoned, you're going to lose yourself in it. So this subconscious part of you that is like so afraid of love is going to pick people with whom there's no possibility, with whom it's not going to work. And that's a very, subtle strategy to keep love as a distance, keep on falling in love with people who are like really from other side of the planet, or 15 years difference. Doesn't mean that it's a problem in itself, but if it's repetitive, if there's a pattern, or people who are not into you and then you attach so much to them, yes, it's a way to let's not go to a healthy, secure love with really potential for growth. And I don't know if I should stop there, or if you want me to keep going into the second.
Yeah, go into the second, and I want to contribute to that. Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. And the second belief or wound is the idea that you are not worthy of love, that you're not deserving of love, and then picking people with whom there is a challenge, with whom you need to prove, you need to fight, is also a way to replay a dynamic and to stay in the familiar, because the familiar is safe. So, having half of love, or having, being loved on weekend and not during the week because the person you're with is not available, is with somebody else, is a way to be like, I don't really deserve it. Or like, I want to prove to myself that I deserve it, but then you keep on replaying the same scenario, the same dynamic without really it. So these are really the two main belief wounds that are coming from the past that you're bringing in, that makes you pick those partners.
Yes, and I wanted to just maybe focus or highlight more of the ways that we project things as well, so that we are aware of that as well. Like projecting whatever that's happening within us to the other person, of saying that, well, this person is not really responsible, not really mature, not really this, not really that. And then we tend to like give this description to the other person after starting a relationship or being in a relationship, and then we believe our labeling of that person so much so that we then start to withdraw, or we start to think that this is a problem, we can't really do anything about it, and then we need to end the relationship, right? So I think this is one of the common patterns that I have seen in my own relationship before, is always looking at how, even if they are saying the things that I want to hear, but then questioning it, oh, do they really mean it? They don't mean it. Like they're creating lots of doubt simply because I wasn't able to love myself back in the day of the way that I wanted to. And then everyone else who showed me that love, I couldn't accept it or receive it simply because I was projecting my inner like insecurities, inner beliefs about myself to the other person, and saying that, projecting to the other person, saying that that person can't really possibly mean what they say, right? And then keep like little things like these, maybe then creating more of the distance in the relationship, and therefore we don't feel like safe in that relationship, and then we need to withdraw. So this, I think, like projecting so much without really realizing that, why can't we accept their love, or why can't we accept that we can create the relationship we want, I think oftentimes come to these deep wounds of um, I'm not capable, or I'm not this, I'm not that enough, and therefore um, like I think sabotaging is another way that we use the word. But of course, a lot of the times, like Pauline was saying, that we do these things so unconsciously without realizing that this is what we're doing. And then the irony, unfortunately, then is that we want something, and then we believe that we can't have that, and then we start like getting into this loop or cycle of or there are no available people, or there are no available this, or I'm not good enough, I'm not this, and then it becomes so difficult to continue any relationship that we then tend to go to another extreme, right? So that's why um, I think recognizing those, how we might be projecting things to the other, how we might be approaching or attaching ourselves to the people that we don't even want to be attached to. So these are the things that we can notice within ourselves based on our behaviors, based on how all of this is making us feel. Could be one of like some of the ways that we recognize what's happening.
Yeah, yeah. I think we can really look at the way of our automatic subconscious way of operating relationship at different levels. So there is who we attract or who we allow in our life, or who we are attracted to, and then yes, as you mentioned, totally this let's say by default modus operandi continues through the distortion, through projection of our own. It doesn't stop with picking the person. It continues with like playing those scenarios in your mind and projecting your fears, your doubt onto your partner. And then there's another level to that, which is provoking provoking the dynamic. So you pick the person, you project on them your wounds, your fears, and then you provoke if not, given in already. So there's different ways we unfortunately replaying our wounds and fears.
Yeah. And maybe one of the things that we need to mention is because I really don't want people to be thinking that, oh, you're just saying that all the problems are within us and we need to do something about it. And we don't want to give this impression to you that there might absolutely be like circumstances where we have people that we shouldn't be even maybe together with because there is absolutely no match, but because of these patterns that we have within us, that we somehow tend to gravitate towards or want to be around them, like for the reasons that Pauline was explaining, right? So we're not saying that it's all the fault of ours, or in no way we want to blame anyone, like especially ourselves, for how we're doing things, what we're doing. We're just wanting to show that there's always like indications for you to watch out for how or why you're having the relationship that maybe you don't want to. And there are patterns that you can notice within yourself without judgment, without blame, without shaming. And then you just decide how you want to change that pattern. And this is the only thing that we want you to be taking from this conversation, so that um, you don't feel like you have no choice, or you have no like agency, or you have no solution out of whatever the problems you're experiencing, but rather you say, these are the patterns I noticed, this is what might be happening, and get curious and start exploring why you do things the way you do, right? And then instead of like focusing on the other person and saying, oh, because of this person, but rather focusing on, I can be the agent of change, or I can be the person who makes the change in my relationship the way I want to. Now, what am I going to do? And this is what we really want to advocate for you to go to, so that you always know that you have an option to do something about it, right? I hope I made it
Yeah,
clear.
I thought it was clear. I think yes, everything that we're talking about, it's about looking within, and it's not from a place of judgment and blaming. Stuck on the opposite, on the contrary. The idea is to get understanding that most of the way we are living in general and in our relationship is coming from conditioning. So in a way, you can think is not you, is what you received, what your system and your mind absorbed over the years without you being aware. And so now it's about peeling off the layers and being like, okay, now it makes sense that I'm picking those, that I'm falling for these people. And so when you sense, for me at least, I feel there is compassion. There is compassion is becomes a possibility when you're like, oh, it makes sense that I got programmed into this way, and that now I can
Exactly.
make a difference. So self-compassion, understanding, and then okay, now what can we do with this clarity?
Yes, exactly. And the way also I also think in my own experiences, I always think of it, oh, these are the patterns that I somehow adopted from my parents or from my father. These are the things I adopted from my mother. And I can clearly see how that's running in my background without me realizing. And once I stop myself and look at these patterns, then I realize, okay, as much as I love them, these are not the things that I want to be living by. These are not the fears that I want to be guided by. So therefore, I just want to remove the conditioning or the messages that my parents gave me, and then I have this a playful, like a platform where then I can say, okay, what is the my way of doing things, right? What is my way of leading relationship or having relationship? How do I want to do that? And then I have like a clarity around, okay, this is how I'm consciously deciding I want to be doing it. And this is how I want to try it out my way, even if it's not maybe has never been done before, or I feel like no one has taught me or showed me before. It doesn't matter. What is matters is really I get to do it in the way that's most suitable matching for me, and how does that look like? So that's what we would love to advocate, that you watch out for your own patterns as well, that maybe you just happen to receive from other people that you love, you respected, and now it's time to get to your own patterns.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And and with that, maybe we can continue with how can we change who we are attracted to if those attractions are not serving us. So if there is just one thing to say, is like, it is possible to change. Even if you've had
Yes.
only people who are not available, it is possible to change that. And I just want to add and making more concrete, because I've had a lot of clients who had those attraction, and typically it's like falling for the bad boys, let's say, for people which, and usually there's a very strong physical attraction with these people. And then on the other side, there is like, oh, the boring guys or the nice guys. Everything is nice on paper, but I just don't feel it. And so I want to say that it's possible to learn to be attracted to people who are safe and secure and good for us, and kind of let go of attraction for what I usually call the bad boys, people who you're not gonna get what you want from these relationships. So there's different things you can do for that. And first, we already started talking about it, is have awareness around your patterns. Because if you don't know what is happening, if you're not aware, of course you cannot change it. So become curious. Who are you attracted to? What are their common features? How do you feel in those relationships? How do you act, or how do you react in those relationships? What triggers you? So looking at your past relationship with curiosity, and trying to understand if, from the messages also that you received about love, about being lovable, like being curious about, like, what is my luggage in relationship? What am I taking with me? And you can look at how you're showing up, and then you're looking at what stories or what belief I have around love and relationship and intimacy and commitment. And then you may understand where it's coming from. Maybe, oh, this was coming from my mother, or maybe my father was absent, or something like this, or not. I would say if you don't find where it's coming from, absolutely, it's also not a problem. Like, you could do therapy and work it out, and alone also asking yourself this question and understanding. And in that case, great. But if you don't understand really the root, it's not a problem. What's important is that you know what is happening, and you know what are the messages that you have about it. So yes, when you have clarity, this is something we've been saying a few times, then you can move on to doing differently, picking people differently. Yes.
Exactly. So what I was going to say is that oftentimes I think we may also use the past as a way of, oh, because of this, I cannot do this anymore, or I can't possibly create these relationships because I came from a very like broken family, or whatever the way that we tell our stories, right? I used to certainly tell this story to myself, is that, well, I came from a family that used to have violence, so how can I possibly create relationships in the loving way because XYZ, right? So if that's the story you're telling yourself, you can also let go of that story, because we know by now, I think many of the times we are talking about how past does not define us, and don't let the past define you as well, right? So don't get so much involved in your past story of how because of XYZ you can't, but rather rewrite the story of how you will know the lessons of that past, but you will also create it in your own way, the way you want to. So you always have that possibility to do that every single day differently if you wanted to. So have that in awareness. And the other thing that I was thinking of, like the main indicator, I would say for me in the relationship that I would define a healthy one, is where I feel myself all the time, whatever that feels like for everyone, right? So for me, the way I think of it, like feeling myself, is when I can like be silly and be serious and be all the things at once without feeling like someone judging me, someone like disapproving me, or whatever the way that we tend to notice. So these are like the little indicators that you may have for yourself is, and whenever I feel like filtering myself, I feel I'm not really saying things until the end, or saying things in the way that I want to, or not saying things on time. These are the indicators then tell me that, okay, I'm trying to adapt to the other person's liking, and that's when I don't like myself, right? So like we talk about people pleasing, there are maybe other terms that you can think of. But anyway, so these are the indicators that I then decide, okay, I am leading a healthy relationship if I'm being myself, and also giving the space to my partner to be the person that the person he wants to be, right? And that's also very important. So, and when that is not the case, then I see that, okay, I need to look at something. Maybe something is off. What is that? And then I get curious about it. So I feel like there are like two, three feelings maybe that guide you to see if that's the right fit, or if that's the person that you really want to be with. And then like for me, feelings are always like easiest way to detect if that's the case or not. And of course, like based on those, you can also look at what the behavior you're having, right? Or how you're showing up, how you're not showing up. And then that will always indicate as well, like Pauline was saying. Anything else that we want to say in terms of what else can be done to change that pattern, Pauline? Because I'm looking at my
Yes.
notes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, for me, once you understand what's happening and what's happening in the surface and what's happening underneath, where it's coming from, then you can heal. And I mentioned that there is those two core belief wounds. One is more about you, being lovable, enough, being worthy of love, and the other one, the idea that love is dangerous. So those two wounds, there's two ways to heal them, and it can be through inner work, but it can also be through dating and in relationship. And so
Yeah.
if we talk about being worthy of love and lovable and deserving, it's exactly what you're mentioning in your own experience, is like deciding, to be loving for yourself is deciding. It's not only deciding, you need to, there's some work that can be done to reach this point, but that's, I'm gonna, be myself. And I'm gonna, one way putting self-love is like, I'm gonna only accept people who are available. I'm only accept, make room for people who are treating me well. And then once you know, oh yes, I have a tendency to fall for people who are not available or not treating me well, then you can really spot, okay, first date, second date, beginning of the relationship, you can notice, when actions are congruent with words or not. If somebody's starting to not answering you, starting to not have time for you, and you may be like, okay, maybe the action of this person is like, looks like my old pattern, and it's not what I'm deciding for myself now out of self-love. When you know that you are worthy of love, deserving of love, your action turn out like you're not giving in, you're not following your tendency for these people anymore. You're like, no, enough, now enough. I just choose, the people who who seem to be right for me, treating me right, having time for me, being interested in what I'm saying. So this
Yeah.
is for the first one. And for the second one, when you notice that you have a tendency to be away, to want to stay away from closeness and intimacy, because maybe there is this idea that love is dangerous, or once you find it, it's about giving chances. It's about making space, allowing people. And so this is also some work, and both dynamics take some work of awareness in how this shows up in your mind, in your body, in your nervous system. But then when you are in a presence with somebody who is apparently matching what you say you want, who is arriving on time, making time for you, treating you well, that you find attractive, that there's all the, check, 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 and you still notice that you have a tendency to push that person away, or to be like, ooh, this person is too good to be true. Like, okay, it's about dealing with the anxiety that is going to come up and be like, okay, can I trust? Can I build trust? And you start by building inner trust with yourself, and then you can accept those people. And then at some point, the person that you used not to find attractive at all, you start feeling attracted to these people because you change your inner wiring,
Yeah,
right? So this is
exactly.
something that could be done both in terms of inner work, therapy, coaching, but then also taking this into relationships, into the dating process, because you cannot only be doing inner work and not being exposed, right? And now I just want to add another point that may help you to deconstruct and challenge your patterns is many people, is like dating actively, what we've talked in a past life, because when you're exposed to different people, then you can practice your recognizing, being like, oh, this sounds familiar. So is this familiar, like safe, not good? Or does this feel good? You start to be more aware of your inner compass.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And from there you can
It-
choose more and more who is right for you, who is secure, has a secure attachment style, who is like ready to available and willing to commit.
yes, exactly. And also the last point maybe I want to mention is that whenever we are like saying that these are the wrong things in quotes, right? Your definition of wrong things that you don't want to be attracting, you don't want to be around, or you don't want to be indulging or being around it, basically, then you can also create for yourself this, like Pauline was saying, in the way that I imagine is like a boundary for yourself, like within yourself, to say that these are the things are we're not going anymore, or we're not like entertaining, we're not
Mm.
staying in it, because I feel like my brain often wants me to stay in like this self-pity, or in this area of, oh, this didn't work out, and then now we're going to like take ages for processing, or from like um it makes it sound like very long, arduous thing that we need to get over before going to another relationship or going another dating or whatever. So it doesn't have to be a long, arduous, difficult thing, that you just tell yourself that no, these are the things I'm no longer entertaining. These are
Mm.
the thoughts or patterns I'm no longer allowing, and that's it. Like it's like a firm decision with yourself that these are
Yeah.
the things you just don't do anymore. And I think one of the things that I used to tell myself, that I no longer entertain thoughts around how my physical appearance is, or how I'm not lovable and all the things, because it's just not useful, and I don't find it at all contributing to what I'm creating. And I just, there's nothing like I can say that would make it any better. So therefore, I just don't allow myself to do that. And it's a bit like, I think, with food, that certain food that I just don't eat. And it doesn't mean that I don't crave them, or it doesn't mean that whenever I go across like to other dinners, I don't see them. I do, but I'm just like, no, that's not what I do anymore. Right? This is like I shift my attention to the thing that I want to, instead of like, oh, should I eat it, or how can I eat it, and what will happen if I eat it, and I don't do that anymore. So that's why I think that could be one of the powerful things you can do with yourself: create this like boundary and say, no, this is no go area. This we can explore and get to know, but this we don't do this anymore. Okay, I think we have talked a lot, and I feel like this time it's over time, but I hope that people have still enjoyed watching all the things that we talked about. Any last points, Pauline, before we close?
No, I think we covered everything.
Yes. So, thank you so much, Pauline. Thank you, everyone,
Thanks
for
to you.
listening, watching. And if you have any questions or want to get coaching around it, let us know. But we really, really hope that you start looking at your patterns and changing the patterns, because you can always change patterns with every bit of conscious decision, conscious awareness you can start, that will already start like making the belief system weaker, the ones that you don't want to have. So that's why you can always start working on it as of now without delaying any of this. So have an amazing week and see you next Tuesday.
Bye, everyone. Bye, Asel.
Bye.